What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something you should go back to the comic book shop for or not. So make sure you subscribe to get more of these every single week. The first one that I want to start off with is Justice League number 32. So Justice League number 32 is a continuation of the Bats Out of Hell storyline, which is a Dark Knight's Metal tie-in. So this is part 2 of that 4-part series. And this is really going to see the Justice League, or the remaining Justice League members, minus Batman and Superman, who are indisposed in the Dark Multiverse, going up against their counterparts inside these various Bat layers. So let's jump right into the story. The way that this one kind of opens up, we don't necessarily see these heroes in conflict with their counterparts. We actually, get a early look into Cyborg's life, and he gives us a rundown as to why he was a good football player, like why he was a star member of the team, and it really came down to teamwork, and now his team is currently the Justice League. After that stunning revelation, we actually dive deeper into the individual characters and their current setups. We see the various scenarios that they're set up in. So we've got the Flash inside this kind of sandy, mysterious place. We've got, Aquaman underwater. We've got Wonder Woman inside a cave. We've got, the Dawnbreaker, Green Lantern kind of doing all this thing. And we kind of dive into the Flash and Aquaman first. He's kind of dissuaded by this sand that's kind of around there, but it turns out that it's nanotech particles, and then the Red Death has got this very elaborate setup, always, make somebody feel at home, or, make them feel comfortable when you invite them into the cave. And the thing is, the Red Death points out the various issues that he always had with Barry Allen of his universe, who still resonates inside his own head. And that was that he was always in such a rush. He was always in such a hurry. He never had any time to connect. And then he kind of constructs this like rat rod desert Mad Max kind of vehicle that he's going to use to kind of toy and destroy the Flash. So, the Flash has obviously got a little bit of, a chip on his shoulder when it comes to this. It's like, I can outrun any car that you make. And it's just like, oh, well, I'm a billionaire, I'll make tons of them. And then we dump over to Aquaman, who's currently going to be in conflict with the Drowned. But the big twist on this one is that the Drowned is riding this massive, monstrous sea shark beastie kind of thing. And he's getting super pissed off. Anger is his real thing at this point in time. And ultimately, it just gets much worse when the Drowned finally reveals that it is a Mara that has been converted by the Dark Water. So it's, he's kind of torn in this fight against the love of his life. She's been transformed into something else, so how can he be angry and hurt her when it's her? And then we finally dive over into the Wonder Woman Merciless battle, which is going to be taking place. She is not necessarily convinced that this was a Batman that once loved her, and how he fought against the various gods and those kind of things, claiming all these trophies that he's adorned his cave with. And finally she decides to settle this like men, or Amazons, I guess. Definitely like Amazons. She throws down her sword and they start to go into hand-to-hand combat, and he starts to use tactics that she would use, the Amazons would use. And this ultimately culminates in her realizing that she is a little bit outmatched in this, and he takes this large golden drachma that was melded together by the coins placed on the eyes of the Amazons as they cross the river Styx to call forth an undead army of Amazons to take on Wonder Woman. And this is where, Cyborg starts to lose hope in the entire situation. Even the Green Lantern, the most willful, the bastard that won't give up, is overmatched by what the Dawnbreaker is doing. And the secret weapon that they currently have is Cyborg himself. And we see his disembodied kind of visage in there, like entangled in all this darkness and mass. So when it comes to this story, it's a second part to what happened in Flash number 33, but it really kind of gives me a few questions, and it kind of really makes me wonder how this is actually going to end, and whether it's going to be a complete story or if it's just going to be a passage of time situation. Because if we see the Flash as a setup to this, and then this as being, the introduction to the combat part of it, this is the first part of Act number 2 in a story. Act number 2 going into Act number 3, needs to be like some sort of crescendo and finality, and then you do a denouement, which takes you to the end. And this one doesn't look like it's going to be any kind of interesting end. The reason I say that is because you not only have to deal with the character of the Flash, you have to deal with Aquaman, you have to deal with Cyborg, you have to deal with Wonder Woman, you have to deal with Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. And then on top of that, you have to deal with the Red Death, the Dawnbreaker, the Merciless. There's the Batman Who Laughs is pulling all the strings behind this. You have the Drowned fight. You have 10 different set-piece characters that are taking up space in a 22-page issue. And even over the course of 4 books, this is just not nearly enough time to do any kind of justice to the individual conflicts and battles between these folks. I think that the best purpose purpose or the best use of this crossover is going to be basically to waylay or completely impede any kind of progress that these four members of the Justice League, the fifth member being tied into the connections between the universe and the dark universe, that's really going to be the tool for this. This is going to move the narrative from the Dark Knight's Metal number 3 into Dark Knight's Metal number 4. But in some of the preview art, I see Aquaman heading into Atlantis to try and gain this nth metal, so that means they have to survive this conflict and win, which is going to make these victories feel really cheap unless there's some really good storytelling elements that come in the next 2 issues, because right now it just doesn't feel like there's very much heavy hitting that's going on as far as story progress. So overall, I could say that it's probably one of the most enjoyable Justice League issues I've read, but I haven't been reading Justice League, and the last one I really read was Justice League versus Suicide Squad and the tie-ins there, and those focused on very specific characters doing very specific things. So overall, Bats Out of Hell, it's kind of necessary if you want to know everything about what's going on in DC's Dark Knight's Metal, but I wouldn't say that it's going to be a strong portion of the overall storytelling for the entire event. So I'll recommend it for those people that want to get caught up on everything, but it seems like something that you can mostly pass over, and that's probably going to be picked up in the next issue. But those are my thoughts and my comments on that, but I want to know what you guys think about Justice League number 32 and its ties into Dark Knight's Metal, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.